Okay, this thing working. Oh, okay, it's working. Whew. I don't know what I was doing. I thought there was going to be an issue. It's kind of dark, isn't it? Hold up. Hold on one second. Let me see if. Ooh. Oh, yeah, that's better. You can look at that. You can see all the laundry and ish in the background. Ooh, okay. Here we go. Got a little plant. Okay, that's good. That's good. Looking like a ghost. Anyway. Oh, okay. You're the only one up in here so far, so we'll see. I'm gonna give it a go. I think that maybe if I don't know, I might have to go back over to the live. Actually, I might get on IG live too and get peeps to click the link. Oh look, my phone about to die. Hold on one second. Let me roll over. Ooh. This cold. This cold is taking a minute for me to shake. It's so annoying. Well, actually. Oops, wait a minute. Where's this thing? Okay. Oh, what am I doing? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, rolling over on the couch? Yeah. What am I doing? Oh, that's why I got this. Hello. Hello. Okay. There we go. Now the damn thing's on 20%. Yeah. All right. So, okay, shiny. Is the picture clear? Am I clear? Or I don't know. This is the first time using this, so at least on Instagram, they send you what am I trying to say? They send people over. But we'll see how this goes. I might have to jump over on what you would call it. I don't know what was going on here. Nope. Okay. Let's see here. Sorry, just bear with me for one moment.
여기요.
Whoa.
즐거운 일 있음?
Whoa. Shut up. Okay. Let's see. I have to go over here. I realize the time to do this is I have a moon meeting at 8:30. So yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Thank you for the support. My mom's supporting me. The only one up in this tip right now. Okay, we're gonna go onto IG Live and give people a minute. Oh look, I'm looking at myself. This is like, whoa. Inception. Let's see. We're gonna do double live in this bitch. All right. The people, oh, well, there's like 9 people on there now. All right. We're gonna go a little live on there just for a moment. Let me see if I can do this. Whoa. Oh. Okay. I got the whole setup. That works actually. Oh, okay. Damn, I'm live on like two. It's weird. See, it's two of me. Okay. Okay, one moment, people. I'm gonna try to get up without kicking over, yes, the table. Oh. Okay. Ugh. So, while we're waiting, I'll tell you guys a little story. So, we have midterm exams this week. So, I guess every 8 weeks, about every 8 weeks here in Korea, they have midterms. And my kids, they were, well, my second graders, this is their first year taking tests, so they're like super nervous. And I was looking at the exam because like the main exam, I don't know which camera to look into, but anyway, their midterm exam is quite easy, and it's quite crazy because um like the weeks leading up to the exam, we have to go over the tests. So pretty much all the English teachers, all the teachers from all the whatever subject they have, we have a meeting in the library after school just to go over the exam, make sure there's like no issues. And I'm looking at the exam and I'm like, damn, why does this look like it's taken straight verbatim from the textbook? And it pretty much was like exactly how it's just really, I'm going to be honest, it's really weird how they learn English here in Korea, because it's a focus on grammar, but then it's like weird because they have like, not only do they have, they're learning it in school, but a lot of these kids go to an English academy after school for like another 2 or 3. They have like another 2 hours of school after they finish school. So with all of that, and with them taking the midterm, all the practice, it's like some of them don't even, they can barely speak. Or if they speak, it's like, I want to say it's like majority of my students, they speak in kind of like one word, kind of like if I ask them, what's your favorite food? They're like, ice cream, which is like a normal response, but to get them to string together a whole sentence, it's like, I don't know, it's just a little bit, I guess, as from a teacher standpoint, it's a little frustrating. But then I guess when it comes to them doing the grammar and memorization, they're good with that. But the actual speaking is like a whole nother thing. But anyway, uh, I'm gonna hit the button. Hi, Sylvia, how are you? I just noticed someone in the room. Oh man, I'm trying to get back to Australia. I am trying to get back. Hopefully 2020 I will be back. I miss it so much. Let's see. Okay. Probably going to just start in a little bit, just waiting for a few more people to get here. I'm actually, for anyone watching on IG, I'm actually also streaming live from YouTube, which is why I keep going back between cameras. Let's see. Oh, you're back in Germany. Oh, wait, are you back in Germany for good, or just visiting for like seeing family or for holiday? Hmm. I'm actually, I'm hopefully this is definitely going to be my last year in South Korea. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood. Okay. Mm. Oh. Oh wow, okay. Uh why did I think you got permanent residency? I don't know. I don't know why I thought that. Yeah. Um yeah, I'm actually in the process of trying to apply for my PR while I'm here in Korea, but the whole process is like oof. I'm like I'm telling myself I'm giving myself a year to organize and do everything, but we're what? We're not in May, but let's just say we're pretty much in May. So I'm like, shit, like I feel like, oh my gosh. What May is the fifth month in June? We're almost 6 months into the year, y'all. Anyway, I can't think about it. I cannot think about it. Okay. All right. I'm gonna start. And I know that there's not that many people watching, but that's okay because if you are catching the live later, the live is going to be available for 24 hours. And if you are watching on YouTube, again, YouTube is going to be available for however long of a process. So I think I'll start here. The IG live, I'm probably going to cut that off at some point. But the reason that I wanted to do this live was because recently I've been thinking about, well, not just recently, but for the past month, I've been thinking about being or I've been thinking about the kitchen, like missing working in the kitchen. And it's a question that I get all the time. I get asked, um, do you miss it? Because I started when I was 16 and I left Australia. Up until the point I left Australia, I had been working in hospitality and nothing else is the only career I've ever known. And that was what I was 20. Well, I left Australia in 2017. So I was 29. So 16 to 29, that's a long ass time. That's a long ass time, especially when if you are 30 below, or not even 30, if you're up, well, 35, is it millennials? I don't know. That age group is very common for us to move around. A lot of people don't stay at one particular job. Maybe 2 years, I think, is like the average, and then people move. So people are holding many different jobs now compared to maybe our grandparents' generation, where they stayed at the job pretty much from the beginning to the end, then you retire and yada, yada, yada. So my main focus tonight with what I want to talk about is the experience of being a chef from the perspective of a Black woman. This isn't something that you hear, but we are out there. We've been in the industry for quite some time, for a long time. And I just kind of want to discuss some topics about not only my experience, but just kind of, well, just kind of like how it's been, where do I see things going, and what does it really mean to be a Black female chef? Now, in saying that, I kind of feel like it's, how should I put this? When I'm in the kitchen, I've always felt comfortable. I've always felt like I'm very comfortable, even though you're doing uncomfortable things, right? Because, it's a very stressful environment. I think the idea of it being hard, being difficult, challenging has always been romanticized from everything from on TV, even some of the most famous chefs. Was it Marco Pierre White? I think, and then after him, Gordon Ramsay, this idea of the chef that is just screaming and just being completely freaking mental, just like absolutely. Hold on one second, let me turn the music off. yeah, just being absolutely aggressive, being mental, being crazy, right? So you have this, and it's a very male dominated field, and it has always been, although I believe that this is definitely changing. Most kitchens now, I think you're always going to find women in the back of the house. It used to be, I feel like, you would find women, if you found them in the back of the house, usually they were doing something like pastry, something like this. But now it's like, yeah, we're everywhere when it comes to women. Now, when it comes to Black women, I'll put it like this: every kitchen that I've ever worked in, I've always been the only one. Now, there was always at least one other woman, and there was still very few of us. But as far as like any Black women, it was just me. So, um, that's already kind of like um, I guess if you want to say like minority within a minority sort of thing. So overall, I want to start this off by saying that all the experiences that I may have had that were negative, they they weren't to the point where it's ever been a feeling of I can't do this. I never experienced anything that was so crazy that it just turned me off from the profession altogether. That never happened. Matter of fact, and I think a lot of women who work in hospitality, you do this. You kind of walk into it expecting it to be some bullshit. You kind of walk in expecting there to be, to be dealing with some dickheads, or dealing with, the high stresses and how people react and communicate under pressure. You kind of expect it. And it's kind of like, to be able to handle it, to put up with it, even if you work front of house. Because I know I'm talking about being a Black woman and being a chef, but just talking about just women, for all of us in general, even front of the house, there's so much bullshit that you have to put up. It doesn't even matter if it's back of the house, front of the house. To be able to handle all of that, you kind of wear that like a badge of honor. And I went into this profession thinking, okay, I need to go work in these kitchens. I need to maybe be verbally abused. I kind of went into with like I don't know, like a pain is good. Like this is like the mentality I had. Like this is what you have to do. You have to do this. You have to do this to earn the right to say that you are a chef. And now that I'm older, I feel like that's not I think that all that's bullshit. I don't really subscribe to that idea anymore. So let me start with, let's see, just very quickly, my very first experience in culinary school. Um, just in general, like even within the training grounds, nobody's a chef. Everybody's kind of like, either people have had the school that I went to required that you at least have had 6 months experience working in some type of restaurant or something like this. So I had 6 months experience working like in a pizza joint, nothing crazy. So I had that. But at this place, this is like one of the top schools in the country. The school that I went to, Anthony Bourdain, RIP. Anthony Bourdain is an alum. Excuse me. He's an alumnus of the Culinary Institute of America. So you kind of already have like this whole prestigious vibe. So everybody that was there kind of like, was walking around, peacocking a little bit, chest puffed out. And at the time, I knew this is what I enjoyed, but that whole side of it, I didn't walk in with like any type of ego or anything like this. Actually, I was terrified. I was really terrified, really nervous, and I had this anxious. I've always had some anxieties about starting anything new, and this was no difference with starting culinary school. So the first time you get into the kitchen, at least with my school, you do like a skills class. So you're learning your knife skills, you're learning about mirepoix and the mother sauces and how to make a bechamel and hollandaise and like, you know, all the basic stocks, different types of stocks, what's a, you know, how to make excuse me, what am I trying to say? Like a velouté, all this stuff. These are the basic things you're learning. And even at that level, I remember there were times where it's like you can kind of feel the difference. So, for example, like, you know, I never really had any issues with my class, but I remember some moments with particularly like two guys, white guys, of course. And I remember one guy, he was like, because we had to do like a rotation. So maybe like one day someone was kind of like in charge and making sure everybody's like cleaning up their section. And I remember this guy was kind of like, I guess he was feeling himself because I remember he was like, oh, you know, we have to get plates to plate whatever we were plating up. He's like, where are my plates? And I remember looking at him like, where are your plates? Like, where are your plates? Your plates? Okay, chef. Like this type of, you know, I remember thinking like, okay, bro, chill. And things like that. So like nothing crazy, nothing negative or anything like that. But to be honest, all of that was a blur. It wasn't really until I started getting into working in different places where you start to see some of the challenges that you have. Because, you know, as a woman, you kind of, I feel like you have to be better. You have to be able to put up with certain behaviors, even if it's inappropriate. And that's something that well, especially in this, you know what? It's funny in this day and age with like Me Too and Time's Up. I feel like you're hearing about all these industries, people being called out, right? And like I think we've had some incidences, I guess, if you want to say in the food world, like Mario Batali. Um, I don't know, like where is he? Like he had his little what happened? There was like some, you know, sexual misconduct that was going on with him. To be honest, none of that's surprising at all. I'm surprised there hasn't even been more and any more people being called out. There was another guy, what's his name? He's a chef based in Louisiana. John Besh, I think is his name. I think there was like something that happened with him and he had stepped down from his position. Who was the other one we had? Oh, the fat, was it the fat, oh, the Breslin is in New York City, really well-known restaurant. It's a part of a group that is, the head chef is April Bloomfield. She's a British chef. It's been like, I think that they received like a Michelin star, but her partner, I think his name's Ken Friedman. There was like some crazy, crazy stuff that went down with him. So like we're seeing it in the restaurant industry. I would be curious to see how this plays out like internationally, because all of the things I just told you are in the US, but when it comes to like just like things like sexual harassment, so I feel like there should be more, because if there's any industry that probably needs to be called out, I kind of feel like it's hospitality, when it comes to, you know, the things that women have to deal with and all of that. So just really quick, I don't want to get caught up rambling. I made notes. I'm prepared. So, okay, I know this is what does it mean to be this. The topic of this video is what does it mean to be a Black chef? And I think I'm going to answer that question, but I feel like to answer that question, there's many, many things that come into play before I can answer this question. Because, you know, first off, well, not first off, you can be too when it comes to like intersectionality. I'm a Black woman, right? This is how I identify, and this is how I go out into the world, and this is what people see. So, you have that. Now, when it comes to all of my years working in the kitchen, I feel like it's been very, very interesting. There's been a, hmm, how do I put this? How do I put this? There's like it's been, how do I put this? It's very difficult. I want to say that overall, it's been positive. I've had a positive experience working in hospitality. However, I want to say that I feel like I've experienced a bit of a glass ceiling, if that makes sense. Um, So, for example, I worked on a cruise ship. I worked for a small cruise company called Silver Sea from 2012 to 2014. I did 3.5 contracts. And when you do these contracts, you are working for 6 months, every single day, no day off. This is what you're doing, right? I did this for, yeah, 2 years, and I want to say the reason I kind of left, though the main reason was that it's kind of insanity working like that. There are some benefits, but for me, with my experience, I felt that I wasn't getting promoted the same way that maybe my counterparts were. And when I say counterparts, for example, I worked with a lot of Filipino and Indian staff. So these were my work colleagues. And now, when it comes to the cruise ship, a lot of people don't know this. When you work in a cruise ship, everyone does not get paid the same. So just in general, most people know that in a lot of industries, men are paid more. If you're a woman, you're paid more, paid less. And it kind of goes down like this. But in the cruise ship industry, you're kind of paid based on nationality. And for me, I always thought that this was strange. Now, the justification for that is that the reason people are paid based on nationality is because costs of living. They say they do it based on cost of living. So, for example, my first position was kind of like an assistant. They call it a galley trainee. I believe at the time I was making, how much was I making a month? I was making about 1,400 US dollars a month as a galley trainee. Now, someone who was an assistant cook, which is technically the next position up, someone that was assistant cook who say they were Filipino or Indian, they were probably making for the same position, actually not even the same position, again, a higher position, they were probably making about, I remember, I think they were probably making maybe $900 a month, something like this. So that in itself right there, I thought was crazy because I'm like, but if we are doing the same job, why are we getting paid different? So I think that as a Black woman, and I deal with that. I think I deal with that. I know for a fact that I probably don't get paid as much as my uh, white counterpart, for example. This is just a feeling. It's just a feeling that I have. And so there's that. And I want to say the most interesting time that I had though was when my years working in Australia. So after I left the cruise ship, I moved to Australia in September of 2014. And I spent my first few months up in, where was I? I spent the first few months in Queensland for did I even last 6 weeks? I think I stayed 6 weeks kind of like near the Whitsundays. So this is like kind of getting up to North Queensland. If anybody's familiar, anybody who doesn't live in Australia, if you're familiar with the geographical location of the Great Barrier Reef, that's kind of like the area that I was living in. So up there didn't last long because it was pretty shit. And then I moved to, because I was like, you know what, Melbourne's where it's at. Like, I know I'm going to be going to Melbourne. Got down to Melbourne and I found work pretty quickly just based on my CV having the experience that I had. So I want to say that that was like pretty great. And I don't feel like I didn't have any type of feeling of applying to a place and thinking like that they didn't hire me because of this or they didn't hire me because of that. Never had that feeling, not once. And that was like, I thought that's why I was like, oh, this is awesome. Not that I was expecting it, but sometimes, you know, you just don't know, especially being in a new country. Um, because at the end of the day, if you're a chef or you were in Melbourne, they really, you know, it's a job. They're just looking for good. They're just looking for people that have the experience, that are professional. If you have that going for yourself, then it's a plus. Now, for me, the thing that I felt like started having challenges with was um, just because people have a lack of exposure. People have a lack of exposure to, you know, working physically close to someone who's different from them, especially, you know, not even women of color, because I want to say Melbourne. Just speaking specifically for Melbourne, it's a diverse city. I've always felt like it's like one of the most multicultural places in Australia. But um, for me, how do I say this? For me, there was a lot of times where I realized that, oh, this is their first time working with someone like me. This is their first time probably interacting with a Black American woman, because that's a whole nother thing. There is a how do I say this? There is a privilege to traveling abroad as a Black woman from America compared to maybe someone who is from whatever country in the African continent, or you know, if you are, I'll put it like this: if you are Black but you're from England, from Canada, from France, from the U.S., you're probably going to have a little bit of a different experience from some compared to someone who might be maybe they're from whatever country. And I'll have to explain that. I'll go into detail about that in a whole nother video. That's kind of, I don't want to, we're not talking about that right now, but I acknowledge it though. So yeah, so in general, a lot of people, their initial interactions with me is pretty friendly because, at least in Australia, I like to say that Australia and America are kind of like cousins almost. Or like Australia is what would happen if like the US and the UK had a child together. That would be Australia. Yeah. They're wild offspring. I feel like that's kind of like my analogy of sorts. But yeah, so there was just situations of realizing that, oh, this is their first time maybe working with someone like me. So then you have to kind of navigate that in the kitchen. You also have to navigate dealing with well, at least in Australia, I had to navigate dealing with a lot of casual racism. Not necessarily casual racism towards me, but just like, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's the Aussie way to say inappropriate shit and it just be, you know, it's a joke. We're saying we're being inappropriate. We're making an inappropriate joke. I mean, inappropriate comment, but it's a joke. So if you're offended, fuck you. This is like the energy. I kind of feel like that the energy I always got. So it's kind of like hard to really, you can't, I'll put it like this, like, you know, if you as a Black woman experiencing that in the kitchen, you're already busy. You're busy. You got like a whole bunch of shit to do. So when that person's making that casual racist joke, you know, you don't always have time to kind of like be like, hey, that's not cool. Because if you do, oh hey, oh, I'm just getting started. You haven't missed anything. I'm getting into the point, talking about just experiences in working in Australia for 3 years in the kitchen. So yeah, 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 yeah. That's yeah. So we're just getting into the tea, honey. But yeah. So like I'll give you guys an example, right? Um okay, so the kitchen that I worked in, the place that I worked in Melbourne, it's been around for a long time. It's a Hatted restaurant. So Hatting is like their rating system in Australia, and really well known place. It was a part of a restaurant group, so the building itself was like quite old. It was like right in the center of the CBD. CBD stands for the Central Banking District. So this basically in Australia, if you hear the word, they're talking about CBD. They're talking about downtown. That's basically the same thing. So this is where I worked, and it was good. Like it was like the kitchen I worked. There were like people from France, a lot of the kitchen hands, a lot of the guys were from Pakistan, Nepalese. Where else? My homeboy Felix, he's from Hong Kong. Uh, who else did I had worked with? You know, a few Aussie people. My head chef, of course, all the people at the top positions were Aussie. Yeah, just people. It's just literally kind of like just people from all over the place. But of course, you know, I'm the only one. I'm the only little drop of color up in there. Except, I mean, as far as like a black woman goes. So with this, you know, you're going to kind of maybe butt heads, or you're going to experience some culture clashes in the kitchen. But in particular, I felt like when it came to like the how do I say, the racial jokes and the casual racism, that was kind of like on a daily basis. And some of it was just dumb shit. Some of it was just like really, really dumb shit. So there was this one chick that I used to work with. She was actually cool, but it's kind of like, how do I put this? I'm the type of person that I'm very big on being able to read people's energy, and I kind of feel like nothing should be forced. So, you know, when you meet new people, I feel like you either vibe or you don't. And it's like if you don't vibe with them, that's cool though. That's cool. It's like that's not even that's okay. You're not going to be cool with every single person that you meet. But when it comes to being professional and working, like I'm going to be professional. Like when it comes to the job, I don't have any problem with that. But when it's time to clock out, I'm not probably gonna hang out with you like that. So it's so there that's kind of like where I'm at. So this chick, she was cool. Plus we worked different shifts. She was like funny, but there were some times where she was like, what did she do one day? Okay, so apparently she always used to be talking about like some YouTube video or something that I didn't know about, but just kind of like, you know, making conversation. And they were like the breakfast people. So to be honest, they had the easiest of jobs. So they could do all the bullshitting in the world. So by the time I came in the afternoon, they were finishing up the breakfast shift, maybe you know, cooking the staff meal, the family meal for everybody. And then they just dipped. And then they were probably like out at 3 p.m. going to go get drunk. It's Australia. So one day she was kind of like talking to me, and she's like, "Yeah, there's like this meme with SpongeBob. I don't like. I'm. This is how silly and mundane it was. 'Cause I can barely remember this, but whatever it was, I guess it was supposed to be like SpongeBob. It was dubbed over with somebody's voice, and it was just SpongeBob supposed to be rapping, and the video was just SpongeBob with this dub just kind of like just saying nigga 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 nigga, and she was like playing, she was holding the phone up, right? She's holding up the phone showing me, and then she was like, and she actually said it, and I'm like okay. And I realized so this is kind of like some of the shit I would deal with. So like that's what I say when I say like I felt like I didn't experience any racism towards me, but just casual ignorant shit, that stuff was kind of like all the time. So like when you work in a situation like this, especially like when you're the only one, you have to really pick and choose your battles. So that would be like, again, the question of what does it mean to be a Black female chef? Sometimes it really is about picking. You got to be like a general, a general. You have to be like a legit general in that bitch, because you have to like pick and choose when it's worth a battle. And like that's kind of, I feel like that was kind of like my experience. But the one thing I have to say about Australia, it was definitely a growing experience, because it made me realize, okay, for my own personal mental health, you have to, sometimes you just kind of have to like separate yourself. How do I put, not separate yourself, but like you have to kind of like switch off to the other bullshit that's going on around you, because at the end of the day, that you're here to do a job, and whatever's going on over here is none of your business. So, I mean, of course, if someone's like physically harming you, or, something like that, that's kind of like, that's a problem. Nobody can put hands on me. Like, that's not happening. That is not happening. But at the same time, sometimes there's some shit you kind of just have to like realize. You have to kind of get to a higher place of, how do I say, you have to get to a higher place of understanding, like, okay, these people, this is where they're coming from. They're coming from a place of ignorance. They are not exposed. And this is kind of how, like, out of all these years I've been living outside of the US, this is kind of the place I'm starting to get to. Because you'll kill yourself. You will kill yourself if you are constantly letting every single stare or every single comment get to you. And this is what it also means to be a Black female chef. I mean, well, first of all, this is why I think, okay, I'm just going to put this out here. If you're a Black woman in the kitchen, you already got it. You already got it, because the whole point of working in the hospitality, they always say you got to have tough skin. You got to have tough skin. I mean, I'm already Black. I'm already a woman. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, I'm armored up. I'm armored up, ready to go. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. So, that's kind of one of the things I've learned. And I kind of feel like there's that. But then, of course, you have to be twice as good. It's just like, these are the things, these are the challenges, I think, as a Black woman, that you have to deal with. And again, like any other industry. Now, the one thing I will say, and this is actually kind of funny, if anything got on my damn nerves, it was if anything got on my damn nerves, it was my hair. Not that I hated my hair, but dealing with your hair in the kitchen, that's a whole nother challenge in itself too, because you know traditionally, when you see a lot of chefs, it's either short haircuts for men. If you have long hair, it's pulled back. And when you start getting into the conversation about, professionalism, because for a lot of Black people, men and women, it's very much a challenge, because our hair, people like to, you know, uh, cons- they already consider our hair to be unprofessional. Excuse me, unprofessional. Why do I keep saying unprofessional? Hold on, y'all. Let me get a sec. Mm. All right, I'm talking a lot. So yeah, you already have to deal with that. And for me, my hair, what did I usually do? I braided my hair up a lot when I was living in Australia. When I got there, I was pretty much natural. I am natural now. Or I was just letting my hair grow as it grows. Sometimes I hate saying natural, but you know what I mean. But I ended up shaving half of my head and doing kind of like an undercut situation. So I was rocking the braids, and to be honest, I didn't really have any issues with that. As far as them, I never got turned away. Every job I applied for, I pretty much got, even with my hair being the way it was, changing it up. And that was kind of like the one great thing about Melbourne, because it's like I feel like Melbourne's kind of like a city, especially when it comes to the hospitality industry. They actually are quite accepting, because they need motherfuckers. Like that's really what it just comes down to. Piercings, tattoos, it's great. Actually, that's the one thing I loved about it. You don't have to kind of, even on the ship, when I was on the ship, luckily at the time I had like a stud. I got away with it. Um, so that was great. But like tattoos, things you have to be covered. But Melbourne, I mean, shoot, you could probably have like a damn face tat. Well, yeah, you could probably get away with a damn face tattoo and it would be straight. So yeah, that was like, oh, that was cool. I was able to wear my hair with whatever style, however I wanted to do for the whole 3 years. Never came up, never had anybody be on some, we have an issue with your hair. Never had any problem with that. Now, what I did have an issue with was people, you know, not commenting, but again, an example. So one day I had, what did I do? I think I had changed my hair, or I got it braided. And you know how folks be. And I can't even just say this is for white folks, because this is for anybody who's not black. Sometimes they trip. They'll see you one day without, nothing. You could be bald, barely like 1 inch of hair, and then the next day you come in with hair down to your ass crack, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like, did you grow your hair? Like, what? Oh wow, is it your hair?" And I'm like, so that silly shit, as my grandmother would say. Just being silly, or no, my grandmother doesn't say silly shit, but she likes to call people clown boxes. Like that's her way of saying a jack in the box. So anyway, yeah, just crazy shit like that. And again, I've learned to take a step back, and I feel like I've grown in the way where, okay, so maybe before it used to, yeah, you know what? It's annoying. It's annoying. It's annoying. I mean, if you have somebody constantly every single time, these are people you've been on the job for 11 months and people are still saying this shit, or when they see that. So now that I feel like I'm older, oh my gosh, 30 years old. Now that I'm older, I realize I've taken a step back. So when these situations happen, I don't react the way I used to. I don't get annoyed. Because I used to get visibly annoyed and stuff like that. And now I'm like, okay, I still feel like, I really feel like it's not Black people's job to educate people. But in certain situations, I realize that some people, they just don't know. They really just don't have any knowledge. They have no clue. So I don't mind explaining. Or if someone asks me, I have no problem explaining to them. You know what I mean? Like, and that's okay. I've learned to kind of like just take a step back and realize, like, they don't know. They don't know. So there's that. But then, again, you have the clown boxes, as my grandmother say. I remember one of my colleagues, this guy, he was French. And I came in to work. I was like, what was I doing? I think I was like signing in for the day. And like I think I was already in a bad mood. He just walks up and he's like this. He's like walking to me. He's like, oh, he's like, he was like literally pointing his finger at my head. And I think I remember just doing something like this. And he's like, oh, your hair. He's like, you change it. I'm like, yeah. Like, it's if again, here's another word I will add to the list. Being a Black female chef means being patient as fuck. So yeah, so there so there's that. These are like just some of the things I would say you have to deal with. Now, when it comes to I think I feel like I really need to touch on this, because I did touch on this in the beginning, talking about like things like sexual harassment, and a lot, these are, women as a whole deal with this on all different types of jobs. But particularly when it comes to hospitality, I think there's a lot more shit that goes on that people don't speak about. They don't, how should I say, they don't say anything because, in the kitchen, it's about you got to handle your shit. You got to handle your business. You just got to get the job done. People, they want you to be efficient. They want you to be fast. We don't have time for emotions. We got like, this is kind of like the energy, and it's changing. I think there's so many restaurant groups, so many restaurants that are starting to change this type of old, in my opinion, ancient, old as fuck type of mentality about how a kitchen should be, how the environment should be. That is changing. But I think there's still a lot of shit that goes on. So again, I'm speaking from my experience of working in Australia, but there were like a lot of, in my opinion, um, there was a lot of things that I saw that I realized was inappropriate. And now that I think back to it, I I didn't, how should I put this? There were some times where I realized I probably should have said something to someone, because now this is the thing. Again, this is my experience as a Black woman. I'm sure that there are maybe a lot of other Black women who are working in the kitchen or working in wine, working front of house, working, whatever pastry, whatever field that they work in, who have dealt with some um, serious shit. Now, in my opinion, I've never experienced any type of sexual harassment. I've experienced people using inappropriate language, but then again, a lot of, there's some things that just come with the package of being in a kitchen, especially working with a majority of men as your colleagues. Hold on one second, y'all. Oh, my thing is about to die. Don't kick over the wine. Wait a second. Wait a second. Oh, 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 oh. 1 second. Ooh, okay. There we go. Okay. All right, get on my couch. Yeah. So, dick jokes. Dick jokes are normal. This is kind of like, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever understand, or science will be able to figure out why dick jokes just never seem to get old with people at all. But yeah, that's kind of like part of the package. And I feel like in the past, and kind of still like this, if you're like a woman in the kitchen, you kind of have to like get in on it, or you're seen as, it just, at least and this is for me, I think it makes things easier because people like to joke. I think some of the most funniest people I've ever met were working in kitchens, and all the kitchens that's like I've worked in, it's been some of the places where I've laughed the hardest. And that's one thing I love, because you run into so many different characters working in hospitality, because you kind of have to be a little bit crazy to work in this industry. You have to have like a little bit, just like a little drop, like a little touch of like crazy, or just something like there, or you just have to have that type of personality or whatever. So I feel like because of that, it blurs lines. It blurs lines because on one hand, you don't want to be a stick in the mud. You're trying to like you want to create some type of camaraderie with your colleagues, who a lot of times might be mostly men. But then it's like you got to figure out how to straddle the line when there's an issue. So, for example, and before I say this example, I feel like there's another element here. Okay, me, I am, again, a Black woman, but I'm also a big, fat, curvy, however you want to say that, woman, working in the field. Now, when it comes to, um, beauty standards, this plays a part in when it comes into desirability or perceived desirability based on society's standards, right? So you have that. Now, when it comes to the kitchen, I feel like, at least in the places that I worked, um, I never experienced any type of sexual harassment, and I don't know, not that I should have, but I feel like I've seen other people go through some shit, and I feel like it's because of perceived, um, how do I want to say? It's those beauty standards come into play. Okay, I'll give you an example. One of my girlfriends that I worked with, she gorgeous girl, absolutely gorgeous girl. Um, you know, really petite, small. She worked in pastry, and she had kind of like a really distinct kind of voice. Her voice is kind of high, but she's older than me. Really, yeah, just really beautiful. But she, to me, beautiful person inside and out, right? So we had this. Excuse me, and the guys were so fucking inappropriate. It just like every time she would walk past, there were comments and just kind of like just now me, I'm a woman. I'm like a whole ass woman standing right next to them, and the comments that some of these dudes would make was kind of like, to the point they felt comfortable enough to say the shit that they said around me, because again, when it comes to, I think when it comes to women in the kitchen, there's a sort of, there can be, not all the time, but there can be this, they can make you a bit, or they can effeminate you. So the kind of like, that's the same way as like if someone feels if a man feels emasculated, feels like his masculinity, someone's taking it away from him. It's the same thing that's the same version for women. So you're kind of like one of the boys. So they can say whatever they want. They can, do crazy shit, inappropriate shit, and that's just kind of the norm. So I feel like, especially add to that, a lot of Black women, and this is just outside of the culinary world, but a lot of Black women, you can be, excuse me, I'm getting rid of a cold. You can be looked at as one of the boys, but they don't even see a woman. Their eyes glaze over. They don't even see a woman. This is for many different reasons. You know what I mean? Because on one hand, I'm like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay because I'm not here for that. I'm okay with that. But at the same time, it can kind of be, I'm a woman. So I don't feel, I'm like, I don't want you to call me bro. I don't want you to call me dude. If you're pat me on the back, you don't have to, I know I'm a big girl. I might look like I can take that, but I don't want you to be like, bah, bah, bah. I've had somebody do that to me before. And it's like, fuck, dude, that's actually a little bit rough. You know what I mean? Like there's kind of like shit where that happens, where, you kind of like, they take that away from you, because it's like, and that has a whole, again, that's like a whole nother thing that we can get. I plan on doing, there's more things that we need to touch on, that I'm going to touch on in future videos. But so yeah, so that's just kind of like another thing. And I feel like, yeah, the fact that they feel so comfortable to make, those type of comments, for me, is not really cool. And it's like, yeah, you're just kind of like, you know, you're one of the guys to them. So um I say all the things, 'cause I want to wrap this up. All the things that I've talked about here, these are not necessarily completely negative things. I feel like being a chef has definitely been one of my life's callings, but I definitely felt like I needed to take a break just for my mental health and well-being, and just to kind of like take a step back and figure some stuff out because a chef is what I do, but I don't want to say that it's like my complete identity. That's all I am. But I think it's important to share these stories, to talk about like these things because um, to help amplify each other's voices because it needs to be heard. And I wish I would have been able to hear about someone else's experiences. What could I expect walking into like a kitchen, especially how to deal with certain situations when there's no one else that looks like you, and things like that. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But yeah, so just to recap, I think being a female chef means learning how to be patient. You know, learning how to be a general, being a boss ass bitch, being able to handle yourself like a general, know when to give, when to pull back. I think it's funny when it comes to, there's these stereotypes about women, women being angry and things like this, but that and black women being aggressive, especially the darker you are, the more aggressive you're perceived to be. um things like this. And it's funny working in kitchens, you would think, oh, that's perfect. You want me to be angry? I got it. Say no more, say no more. So you would think that all of this would work for me. and I'll and I've experienced the thing where even in a place where my white male counterpart could be doing all types of crazy shit, spitting out all types of verbal abuse, to being on some wild shit. And for them it's kind of like, yes, yes, yes. But then if I were to not even do the same thing, but to speak with some type of authority or something like this, then it's kind of perceived as like, oh, I don't know about this one. It's like fuck. Like, so even in an industry where this type of behavior sometimes can seemingly be encouraged, if you are, you know, someone like me, they don't want to see that shit. So anyway, I want to say yes, it's about being learning how to pick and choose your battles. It's about being patient. That's what it means, at least to me, being a black female chef. Being resilient, having to, handling your business. Um, all of these things, I think, is what it is for me. My personal experience. These are what these are the things that makes is what it means. Excuse me. These are the things that make it, um, you know, being a chef worthwhile. So, um, yeah, I'm already at an hour on this live stream, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. Again, on IG, I'm gonna wrap it up on over here on YouTube, but on IG, for the people who are watching, thank you for dropping in. You can catch this live for 24 hours before it's gone. But don't worry, it's gonna be over on YouTube. So peace. Okay, and for the YouTube folks, yeah, this is going to be up. So if you did not actually catch the live because there wasn't really anybody here, this video is still going to be up to be watched for the future. And I'm going to be doing a part 2. This might be a part 3 and part 4. We might get a little bit more specific, as well as I have some tricks up my sleeve as far as what I want to do with this conversation topic. So anyway, thank you for watching over here on Nomad Peeps TV. And as always, be happy, be healthy, be well, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.